This is Siberian Larch, and this is Siberian Larch timber cladding on a recent building of mine. It is a beautiful and durable cladding material, and I have two upcoming projects where the same timber has been specified. The trouble is, Siberia is in Russia, and the import of this timber into the UK is now impossible because of the sanctions imposed after the invasion of Ukraine. Over the last few weeks, I have been searching for alternatives to Siberian larch, and this video looks at what I discovered. Over time, different species of timber have been fashionable for cladding buildings in the UK. Around 20 years ago, Western red cedar, imported from Canada, became the favourite. I used this material on a project back in 2015, but for a variety of reasons, it has become more expensive and increasingly difficult to source since then. Siberian larch increased in popularity to fill the gap left by Western red cedar. The highest grade of Siberian larch is almost completely free of knots, and the growth rings are close together, and the boards can be used without paint. If left untreated, the timber turns a very attractive silver-grey colour when exposed to sunlight. For my own projects, I usually source timber cladding from Russwood, a sawmill in Newton Moor, deep in the Scottish Highlands. Despite working with them for several years, I've never actually visited their premises, but given the sudden need to look at alternatives to Siberian larch, they invited me to meet them and see what they have to offer. I wasn't paid to make this video. Russwood are widely respected in the industry, and I have a genuine need to see what alternative products are available. So I took the 2-hour drive up the A9 to Newton Moor, the village closest to the geographic centre of Scotland. Russwood's sawmill and offices are part workplace and part working prototype. Many of their buildings are clad in timber and exposed to the elements to see what different species and treatments look like over time. Their compound is dotted with sample boards for the same reason. I felt like a kid in a toy shop. There were so many different types of timber cladding on show. My guide was John Russell, who is the managing director of Russwood. It was clear from our talk that John has a great deal of knowledge of timber cladding, but he was also keen to hear my views on various cladding products Russwood offered. We started by looking at Russwood's examples of Siberian larch. This is a very high quality material and can be used for exterior cladding and decking. While the timber will age to a soft grey colour if exposed to sunlight, the aging process can be uneven, and Russwood offer a coating called CU, which can be applied at their sawmill or on site. This creates a consistent weathered tone. The coating can be varied from lighter to mid to dark grey. This building on the Russwood site was designed as a collaboration between Mary Arnold Foster Architects and Annie Kenyon Architects. It was built 5 years ago. The cladding is Siberian larch, even on the roof. The rear elevation has been clad using a variety of different finishes, including matte black. While this technology is impressive, it divides people along philosophical or aesthetic lines. I believe timber cladding should look natural. I don't like painting it, and I don't like finishes that make it appear uniform. Treatment like this costs more than natural timber and locks the owner into an eternal cycle of maintenance. I think timber should be allowed to weather, provided the right species is chosen and the detailing is correct. Timber cladding will last for decades, even in exposed environments. Given that Siberian larch is now off the menu, John took me to see their Scottish larch. I had always discounted this material because even the highest grade has more knots than Siberian larch. This is a bale of Scottish larch ready to be milled into cladding boards. The end grain is relatively consistent, and while it has some knots, they aren't as bad as I feared. John showed me some examples of Scottish larch around the Russwood compound, and once it weathers to a soft grey, it looks really good. In case you wondered, it's ultraviolet light from the sun that weathers the timber, not wind or rain. To demonstrate this, John showed me a 22-year-old building on site which has been clad in Scottish larch. You can see the area which gets sunlight has weathered grey, but the area in permanent shade retains its original colour. The timber is still in excellent condition despite being nearly a quarter century old, and John expects this to last at least another quarter century. Having seen examples of Scottish larch up close, I am now much happier specifying this in place of Siberian larch. I would also consider the CU treatment for any areas in permanent shade, so the cladding will be a consistent finish on all elevations. The next material John suggested was thermopine. This is thermally modified Scots pine grown in Scandinavia. The timber is slowly baked at hundreds of degrees Celsius, and this permanently modifies the cellular structure, making it much more robust and increasing its longevity up to 3 times longer than untreated pine. Russwood had sent me photos of Thermopine before I visited, and I was not impressed by the chocolate colour. But John showed me these examples, which have been unpainted and weathered to a pleasing colour in just a few months. John tells me that Thermopine will eventually turn grey if left untreated. Russwood more usually applies several coats of paint to Thermopine boards before they leave the sawmill. The process of creating Thermopine reduces the wood's natural tendency to shrink and expand with moisture and temperature. This, in turn, increases the lifespan of the board, making the product a high-quality alternative to more traditional timber cladding. Personally, I prefer the untreated version and will look seriously into specifying this on future projects. John also gave me a tour of their moulding machines. These vicious-looking circular tools can turn rectangular boards into intricate profiles used for interlocking cladding boards. The process takes seconds from plain board to moulded profile, and Russwood have a large variety of profiles on offer, as well as the ability to create custom profiles to order. John told me that Russwood do not usually store finished boards on site. They prefer to ship cladding to customers as soon as it's ready, but the unprecedented state of the UK construction industry in 2022 has led to delays on projects everywhere. For this reason, Russwood's warehouses are full of orders which should have been shipped weeks ago. I really enjoyed my tour of Russwood's facilities. This video only shows a fraction of what I saw. I will make another video in the near future looking at their timber flooring, as this has also been affected by sanctions on Russia, and Russwood have been busy stocking alternative materials, so if you want to see that video, please subscribe to the channel.